This carjacking situation is out of control. Nationwide. Every city. Every democratically run city. Teens drive brutal spike in carjackings with COVID limiting school and supervision. So they're blaming it on the pandemic. The fact that teens are now carjacking, even in places like DC where they're back in school. They're back in school in DC. But they're going to blame the pandemic for these just incredible carjacking numbers. And the kids doing it are 12, 13. Girls. There's so many girls carjacking people in DC. It's like if you in your car and you sitting in your car waiting for somebody, you see a group of girls walking down the street, you literally gotta lock your doors. A group of little girls. You gotta gird yourself and brace yourself when you see a group of little girls walking down the street. And people are starting to notice that it's not teens doing it. It's a specific group of teens. The fact that we're saying teens and the spotlight is being put on all teens, like all groups of teens, all races of teens, all nationality of teens, when really, literally, it's one group of teens from one demographic, one racial group. It's not teens. So this woman says, tale of two headlines. White man kills Asian women. White supremacy haunting Asian Americans. Two black girls killing Asian Muslim man. The girls assaulted an Uber Eats driver with a taser, which led to an accident in which he was fatally injured.
Today, family gathered to honor the life of a Virginia man murdered during a botched carjacking in the district. A prayer service was held for 66-year-old Muhammad Anwar at his mosque. His funeral was Friday. He was killed while making a delivery for Uber Eats, and his death has received worldwide attention after police say two teenage girls stole his car and crashed it near Nats Park on Tuesday. Our Lindsay Watts has been following this. She's live where it happened tonight. And Lindsay, you have some new details about the case.
Well, Lauren, first I have to say there has been an outpouring of support for the Anwar family. A GoFundMe has raised over $600,000 in just 4 days. There has been a huge amount of attention and outrage about what happened right here. And that's partially because of a video of the carjacking that went viral this weekend. We're going to show you some of that, but I do want to warn you, it is incredibly disturbing.
What's going on?
This video has been viewed millions of times on Twitter alone. You see Muhammad Anwar next to his car. The teen girls are inside. He says, "This is my car," and the driver hits the gas as Anwar clings to the door. And then...
She's stealing their car. He's stealing the car? Yeah, we called the cops. Call the cops. Come on.
The horrifying sound of the crash. The man filming runs there. You see members of the National Guard helping the girls from the car. Anwar is alone on the sidewalk after he was thrown from the vehicle. You can hear one of the girls saying, "My phone's in there," as she tries to go back to the car. DC police tell us they are aware of this video.
So, this is in the Navy Yard, near the Navy Yard, where you have a lot of soldiers down there. Soldiers left the man to die. They didn't try to help him. They tried to help the girls out the car. The girl told me, "Where my phone at? My phone in there, my phone in there." She worried about her phone. Well, this man is, no understanding of the repercussions and how much trouble they're in. because they're not in a lot of trouble. My wife said they're going to jail for a long time. I told my wife they'll be out at least by they're 21, maybe 18. The 13-year-old will be out by the time she's 18. The 15-year-old, maybe 18 too. The juvenile justice system is broken in this country. I hate when I hear people talk about the prison, school to prison pipeline, and black teens are always introduced into the system. These kids carjack you and then be home that night. Get arrested and be home that night. The majority of the carjackers in D.C. are repeat offenders. Repeat offenders. 12 and 13 and 14-year-old repeat offenders. Been arrested, got out, did it again.
The horrifying sound of the crash. The man filming runs there. You see members of the National Guard helping the girls from the car. Anwar is alone on the sidewalk after he was thrown from the vehicle. You can hear one of the girls saying, "My phone's in there," as she tries to go back to the car. DC police tell us they are aware of this video.
Our victim in this case, he has a loving family that are missing him dearly. And then on the other side of this, we have two young people that are facing very similar, very serious charges, and they're not even old enough to drive.
DC Commander Ramey Kyle leads the Criminal Investigations Division. The teens in this case are 13 and 15 years old.
And we also know that at least one of them had participated in something very similar back in January where they were arrested for that as well. So it does seem like there is a pattern here.
Police sources tell Fox 5 it wasn't just one case, but several carjackings and robberies. We're working to learn additional details about that and what typically happens to juvenile offenders in these cases. The suspects are now charged with felony murder and armed carjacking. Police say they had a taser. We found out this year in the district, carjackings have surged 350% over last year. And last year, there was a spike of nearly 150% over the year before.
This current carjacking and robbery uptick, we can definitely say that many of those crimes are being committed by juveniles.
Back live now, you can see the flowers that people have left behind for Anwar. Family says he immigrated from Pakistan, and Uber Eats confirms he was in the middle of making a delivery. He was working when this happened. Family still is not speaking publicly, but they did have this to say about the support they have received. They say, although money won't fill the gaping hole that his death has left in our family, it will help remove some of the stress and worry of daily living while we grieve and heal. We cannot thank you enough. We are overwhelmed by the kindness and support that everyone has shown. Family says they miss him.
Now, this is being called an accident. Okay? An accident. And here one of you tired of black folk always saying the media bias towards black folk. No one, in none of these reports are they saying that every kid who's been arrested for carjacking was black. In none of them reports. In none of the reports that they said every kid in D.C., a city 47% black, I think it's a little less now because I was out the other day and I didn't see no black people. But I'm tired of two things. This notion that black teens are introduced to the criminal justice system more, because I was one of them teens. They bring you home and ask your mother, do you want us to take them? And even if your mother say yeah, they try to talk her out of it because they don't really. And look, it's nationwide where little girls are carjacking people, getting arrested, getting out, and carjacking people again. Getting arrested, getting out the next day, and carjacking people again. Little girls are the face of carjacking in this country. And it's not all little girls. It's little girls from a certain group.
New tonight, Chicago's carjacking crisis is getting worse. Take a look at these numbers. Police telling us there have been 352 carjackings in the city so far this year, and only 62 arrests. And tonight we know a 14-year-old girl was behind at least 4 of those carjackings. CBS 2's Tara Molina spoke with an Uber driver who says she was targeted by the teenager. That 14-year-old girl, who we aren't identifying because of her age, is facing 4 felony charges for her involvement in carjackings. One of the victims, Carolyn Andrews.
One jumped behind me so fast that my head was like this.
It took a while to get here. Carolyn Andrews still can't get back in the driver's seat without thinking about it.
When I got back in the car, it's like I could just feel her hand around my neck.
The night she says she picked up 2 young girls while driving for Uber, only to end up in a chokehold.
It hurts.
Blood pouring from her nose.
Because I did have to go to the hospital.
Carolyn relies on oxygen and a special heart monitor 24/7. She says she had to beg the girls to give them to her before stranding her on the west side.
Yes, they passed it to me themselves. Well, you can see the back. It's one bullet hole right here.
Showing us the car they took off in now, damaged with a bullet hole in the back, but recovered and back in her spot. She says,
Thank God that they spared my life.
one of the girls behind her carjacking saw a judge today, and we found Carolyn is not the 14-year-old's only victim. She's behind 3 other recent carjackings across Chicago, according to CPD. Facing 4 felony charges now. We learned that 14-year-old was already on electronic monitoring before her arrest.
Lock her up. That's what I want to see.
So while Carolyn is back driving for Uber again because she says she can't afford not to,
I'm working from paycheck to paycheck.
she hopes the girl behind the anxious feeling she gets every time she does this is learning something the 4th time around.
It shouldn't come to no 4th victim.
That 14-year-old girl is still on electronic monitoring with a judge's orders to stay home. She's being monitored by a probation officer and has an educational advocate helping her with school. For CBS 2, I'm Tara Molina.
Now, one thing we have in D.C. is a bunch of woke white people that do everything but greet you with Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter in all their yards. You go to, you can tell it's a white person lived there. That's how D.C. is. You know ain't no black person who had no Black Lives Matter sign in their front yard. You can tell it's a white person that lived there when you walking down the street. Because you're going to see a Black Lives Matter sign or some kind of Black Lives Matter paraphernalia or something, or George Floyd something in their yard. We got the wokest. Maybe San Francisco, and I'll get to San Francisco in a minute, but maybe San Francisco has more woke, but D.C. is very close. I mean, these white people are annoying. It's like, it's insulting. Hey, man, Black lives, like, come on, man. Black people die every day in D.C. Every black person that's been murdered in the last 3-4 years has been, every person been murdered in this city has been murdered by a black person. And 99% of them, of the murder victims, been black. And y'all talking about some dude that got killed in another city by a cop. Y'all out here protesting. I mean, it's so annoying, white people in D.C. But one thing they won't do is send their kids to school with these kids like these girls. So D.C. used to be 80% black when I was growing up in the 80s. Over the years, gentrification and all these different things, now it's 47% black. Still, the public schools is all black. Because these white people who are here in the city, have kids, school-age kids, refuse to send their kids to school with black kids. But they'll run up on you with all the woke phrases and woke jargon, and they'll protest if a dude get killed in Honolulu, a brother get killed in Honolulu by a cop, a crackhead, a black crackhead OD in the back of a squad car in Juneau, Alaska. They're going to be shutting down the streets of D.C. But one thing they won't do is send their kids to school with your kids. And it's a shame that these white people can't send their kids to the public schools because they pay taxes just like anybody else. And they can't, they not sending it. You got girls, a ton of little girls in D.C. carjacking people, killing people, getting arrested, getting out the same day and doing it again, getting arrested, getting out the same day and doing it again. You think these white folk gonna send their kids to school with your kids? They'll talk all that woke crap, all that. They'll protest if a black dope fiend ODs in the back of a squad car in Maine. They'll say he died in the state custody, state-sanctioned murder. But they won't send their kids to school with your kids. Trust me on that. I never had a white classmate when I was in D.C. public school. Never. I want you to understand this. Not one white classmate while I was in D.C. public schools. Not one. I'm not talking about like a couple. And the city is far whiter now. And still, you ask a kid, do they got any white classmates? You know, nah, I ain't no white people in my class. These white parents are spending tons of money. They should get a tax write-off because they have to send their kids to private schools so that their kids don't go to school with carjackers and murderers.
It was the ultimate adrenaline rush. I could barely sleep.
You're looking at the moments after a recent college graduate walked out of a Safeway in the Richmond district early Thursday evening and noticed something was very wrong.
And I'm walking across like the parking lot, and I see this old woman getting dragged across by her head, and these girls are punching her, they're kicking her, stomping on her.
According to SFPD, a 75-year-old woman walking back to her red Lexus was attacked by 3 young women who took her keys and purse and tried to carjack her. That's when this Good Samaritan, who doesn't want to be named, jumped in after dropping his jug of almond milk.
Honestly, I'm still trying to figure out why I did this, but I just punched through the back window. And it was loud enough and kind of scary enough to freak him out.
You can see the suspects get out of the car and briskly make their way to a waiting vehicle.
Comfort the woman and call the police.
The woman was described to me by a witness as tough as nails and declined treatment at the hospital. But before leaving,
she thanked me, and she said that I don't have to pay for her windshield or her back window, so that's really nice.
As the investigation continues, our college grad didn't forget to pick up his dropped jug of milk.
Oh my God. I get my milk. That stuff's not cheap.
And wishes the senior a speedy recovery.
I think I would say just, stay strong. The community has your back.
This guy says, there are a lot of leftist commentators terrified that incidents like this shed light on how 60 years of liberalism has effed up black communities to the point we have 13-year-old black girls committing carjackings that end innocent lives while destroying their own. If the girls are doing this, just imagine what the boys are doing. And you guys know because we've covered it. The boys are doing 10 times, 100 times this in some cities. The boys are off the charts. The 12, 13-year-old boys, they're off the charts. But the girls are doing this all the time. Getting arrested, getting out the same day, and doing it again. That's the part that I keep harping on because you have to understand. You're gonna hear you heard a lot of people talk about, man, the black kids are. What was that one teen who was fooling around with that girl and what was it, Stanford or something? and he got charged with assault, but he only did like 30 days or something, 6 months or something. He got like 6 months or something like that. And all the black people was mad that he only got, if it was a black teen, he would have got 1,000 years. They don't understand, man. Black teens, they got it sweet, man. It is sweet. This justice system is sweet. So this woman, she's upset because many youth facilities are increasingly holding almost entirely black and Latino teens, according to interviews with more than a dozen juvenile justice officials and attorneys in 7 states. Just think about that. And they're attributing that to racism. Just think about what these kids have to do to actually get into a facility. Majority of the time, they're released the same day. At the most, sometimes ankle monitoring. Home. But after they do enough egregious stuff, they end up in a facility. And they're attributing that to racism. They're attributing that to racism. They're saying that this is racism. Why? Many youth facilities are increasingly holding almost entirely black and Latino teens. Has nothing to do, and it's white liberals pushing this narrative that it's racism. But as I showed you earlier, they won't even send their kids to school with these black and Latino kids, mostly black kids. But they'll get on their high horse on Twitter and chide and and talk down on people and impugn people's character and call people racist for every little thing they say. Every non-woke comment, you're a racist and you need to be canceled. But they won't send their kids to school with these black kids. And that says everything.